Okay, so welcome everybody. I want to talk about the music modes, what has worked well for me in learning music theory early on using the modes. I find them to be invaluable, like one of the best things. And of course, that's where you start. But to me, they've become more than just some standardized practice routine where you just learn about music theory. I really do think they give you so much more. Like they invite you to yield the music like a Jedi Knight does with the saber, right? It really gives you the tools, and everybody is different with it. No two people are the same. I think that's phenomenal. But I just want to talk about um, how I got started in music early on in the early 2000s, playing my bass. No actual lessons or anything, cracked a book or two, not very many, maybe 20 minutes of book time. And I just kind of fumbled around on my own until the point where I actually got stuck and I got frustrated. And then I broke it down, took a step back, took some accountability and said, hey, I need to change this. How am I going to do that? So I went and I started taking lessons. And when I started taking lessons, it did a few things for me. It removed some of the mistakes, made a few things clear. But one of the most important things that it did for me is it required me to practice more, right? I started practicing, I'm gonna be honest. Um, Before I was just noodling around and doing dumb stuff with a couple of band members. But I actually started practicing because I wanted to ingest the music theory and be proficient, right? Not be a master, not be, a shred or anything, but I just wanted to be proficient. I think I just want to be the guy when I show up that I can jam almost with everything, not all the things, but just be confident enough, skilled enough just to jam a little bit and know a few things aside from learning a whole bunch of songs. And the practice actually started to be one of the things that I did more than anything because I was gaining so much knowledge, so much understanding, and so much functionality and being fluid. It really forced me to learn the neck of the guitar. It really forced me to understand what's going on, and it forced me to listen to what was happening. So I practiced scales and pentatonics for about a year straight, every day, at least 4 days a week, right? And before I could realize what was going on, my skills advanced just a little bit. Didn't see it over time, but I had a moment where I took a step back and I'm like, oh, wow, that's much better than what I was doing before. And my ears got better. I never thought I had good ears. I always thought my ears were really terrible. It turns out they're not. I just wasn't practiced, right? So let's talk about these modes a little bit. And I try not to make it too wordy, but just kind of some things that I've learned. I'm not a teacher, can't educate you too badly, but I can just talk about the things that work well for me and maybe might work well for you. Okay. So why do the modes matter? For one thing, you can discover how modes can bring mood, emotion, and variety to your music. Learn simple ways to use modes and expand your creativity. Makes, excuse me, Modes are key to understanding music theory and creating unique sounds. That's my favorite part right there. They help you explore new moods and tonal possibilities. That's another favorite one. Because whenever you're doing something and you want to like stretch out a little bit, having a music theory gives you more options and you kind of already know to the edge, or not to the edge, to how far you can go instead of just imagine if you just know a C major scale. How diverse can you make the C major scale, right? But if you know all the modes, you can be in C major scale and play the Locrian mode of that or the Phrygian mode of that, and you can get outside of that little box and something totally different. So that one's really key for me. Many musicians and composers use modes to develop fresh idea. Absolutely. So modes are basically flavors or ingredients, like in your um, cabinet when you want to cook something, you bring the ingredients out. Consider modes like that, and they're all connected. The best way that I like to put it, two examples: um, cinnamon toast, right? What are the three ingredients? Maybe four. You got bread, butter, sugar, and cinnamon, right? All those four ingredients have an identity on their own, right? Independently, they do different things. But when you start combining them together, they become one entity. And that's the way that I look at music. The same with peanut brittle. You know, you have the peanut, the brittle. What else is in peanut brittle? I don't know what the brittle part, what it makes up, but it becomes crunchy. It's sweet, it's smooth, it's salty. All those different things create that one entity. Those separate things are the modes. And that's how um, I use colorization of the language to kind of give you an idea of how they work, right? It takes some time to understand what those individual pieces sound like on their own. When I first started, it was tough, like Locrian mode, Phrygian mode, or let's say Mixolydian and Lydian. Those are kind of hard to distinguish on their own. Like if you played me a Mixolydian scale and a Lydian scale back to back, would I be able to tell the difference in the two right now? Probably not, right? However, if I'm making a song and I know it's a major and minor and I know I'm in that particular scale, I'll know whether or not the Mixolydian, which is minor, if I'm right, it's going to sound different than the Lydian in that respect. But play them separately, my ears aren't that good yet. A lot of people's ears are, mine aren't, right? So this is why modes matter. Really gives you many tools to approach things, keeps you safe, right? Keeps you safe because you're playing all the right stuff, and it lets you explore and get some options. So what are the modes? You have Ionian, which is the major scale. If I pronounce some of these right, don't come for me. All right. I should know them by now though, but I may just pronounce them wrong because I'm goofy like that. Ionian, major scale, bright and happy, right? Dorian, smooth, jazzy, soulful. Phrygian, exotic, mysterious. Lydian, dreamy, uplifting. Mixolydian, bluesy, funky. Aeolian, natural minor, sad and moody. Locrian, dark and tense. My favorite mode is Aeolian. I always like starting in Aeolian. I like that moody sense. And then if I want to take it somewhere else outside of that, pop into major, I can pop into Phrygian, Dorian, or whatever, and it gives me a really good contrast, just where I'm at right now. So hopefully that makes sense, right? How to start using the modes? Start with the major scale, Ionian, and its relative minor, Aeolian. Focus on one mode at a time. That's key. I started with the C major scale, and I practiced that thing back and forth, mundane, just ran it like crazy, like I had some type of OCD, chronic issue. And I just went back and forth until my fingers in my brain saw it as an entity. It was just, it was smooth with it. And then I moved on to the next one. And then the next one. And then the next one. I just rinsed and repeat, right? Do 3 weeks on C major scale, move on to the next. You have to add the other ones in too, right? But you're just really trying to clobber that one at a time. And then over time, the muscle memory really sets in. It's not going to happen overnight. You won't realize it. You won't recognize it. You just got to keep doing it. My trick idea, no, my advice, do it or plan to do it for 6 to 8 months. At one point in time, I wanted to make a practice calendar where it broke all these things down and you can practice. You have a calendar. You wake up in the morning, you can see your calendar. Okay, today I'm doing Dorian or whatever. I can't figure out how to do it yet. I have the format, but I just kind of work it out. But maybe now with Chat GPT, I can come up with something. But anyway, you want to give yourself 6 to 8 months practicing the basic scales until you can be fluid with it. Learn the neck a little bit as you go along. Highlight some target notes to make it easier for you to get to one place or another. For instance, if you're in C major, 3 positions, excuse me, if I'm in C major, there's 3 positions on the neck that I can anchor myself. One in the first section, 4th or 5th section, then at the repeat at the, close to the 12th fret, right? I know those three positions and I can get to those really easy. Major here, and then another one down here, right? And then if I connect another scale to that, then I'm opening up even more, right? But time is of the essence. Give yourself time to learn it. 6 to 8 months minimum. Better to do it for a year, right? That's how I think you should start using the modes. And you should also memorize the 7 modes from start to finish, right? That's a dummy move. That's simple. What's next? Practice tips. Oh, these are really good. I wasn't doing any of these things, and I wound up doing these things based on getting to a point and needing to change things, and I had to reach out, look for some other things, and some of it I was just getting creative, bored, and trying different things, and I'm like, oh wow, that worked really well, right? So play the scale while listening to a drum note in that mode's key. Now, that I've been doing only for like 2 years, and that's probably one of the number one tips I think is so good because you can play a drone note. Let's say you're playing a B drone note, right? It's just a, and then you can play a B scale, all the modes, in the scale degrees one by one, and you can hear them bouncing off of that drone note. And it really accelerates your listening ability, and you can actually hear what the stuff is sounding like against things. So you can hear all the moody stuff, the happy stuff. You can hear that against the drone note. And you can practice that for hours. It's very satisfying listening to your notes on top of that. And then once you get bored with that, just get creative and change it up. Start on different modes, use different notes, sprinkle things around a little bit. And against that drone note, they sound wonderful. Start there as soon as you can. Actually, you should be practicing your scales to the drone note, to be honest. Practicing your scales just sitting on the couch, that's fine. But if you have the capability on your iPad or your phone, put a tone out, that's the best way. I think it accelerates the ears big time. Practice often to build muscle memory. I already outlined that. I can't emphasize enough how much the fingers of muscle memory and the ears of muscle memory. I remember getting to a point halfway through my 8 months. I had been practicing scales on a daily basis for about an hour a day. And when I would listen to songs, I couldn't hear the keys that it was in. However, when they did key changes in the song, I could hear that like it was night and day. I'm like, wow, that was a severe key change. Prior to that, it all sounded the same to me. So that is like gold when you start understanding that your practicing is making some progress. So just give it some time, but make sure you're doing it consistently. That is the key. Do you have to be doing it every day? Not necessarily, but being consistent is so good for you, for the mind, the soul, and the ears, and the muscle memory, right? Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if you're doing that consistency for 8 weeks or whatever your schedule is, as long as you are consistent and not taking breaks and coming back, that's the secret sauce. Consistency and a little bit of discipline, right? Experiment. Absolutely. Once you get a few scales where the muscle memory and you're just like, oh, I got it. Experiment. Go for broke. Be creative. Just be brave and just try to mix it up. You already know what all the notes are. Put them in a different fashion. Go for it. It'll never hurt. Well, here's another tip I didn't put in here actually. You want to make sure that you record everything. That's a big one, and I should have put that in here. But whenever I was practicing, I was recording it, whether it was on my phone, whether it was on my computer. I was always recording it and then listening back to it, right? I remember being in a studio with the band one time, and we hired a guy to come and record our 3 songs. And he told me something I'll never forget. He said, recording what you do is the truth. And he couldn't be more right, right? So record yourself, listen back right away, and then take a break from it. Come back the next day in the evening and listen to it again, right? Because, we get euphoric about when we do something, we feel good about it. And we kind of embellish how we're hearing it. instead of being truly objective. But if you give it 24 hours, come back to it, listen to it fresh, and see if you still like it. Because then your palette is clear and you'll hear things that you didn't necessarily hear when you're kind of euphoric about it, right? Play around and find sounds you like. When you're just experimenting and you hear two notes going together that you like, play the hell out of those notes together, right? Because you're just going to build your bag of things that you like, right? If you hear them and they sound good to you, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it until you don't have to think about it. That's going to become a little bit of a phrasing for you. That's going to be kind of a style for you or something to that effect, right? Go nuts on that. Use backing tracks. YouTube has plenty. Try modes in real music. This was another huge thing that I did. I got tired of, playing against drone notes and all that. I'm like, what else can I do? I wasn't able to make chord progressions myself. So I went onto YouTube and I literally typed in bass backing tracks, I typed in backing tracks, no bass. And there's hundreds, if not thousands of songs out there built for jamming to, and they have the bass out. If you're a guitar player, they have the guitar left out or they have it with accompaniment. Same with all genres of music. And this was like really cool for me because I was started to play along to these things, and they show you the chord changes on the screen as it goes along. And I thought, oh, I'm good now. I got major scale. I can, practice along. And I ran into a problem because not all the notes were fitting. They weren't working as I thought I would. And I was scratching my head thinking, wait a minute, all these notes are in that scale. Why am I having trouble? And then I realized, they're adding some extra notes outside of the color of the scale, which is fine. Cool thing is my ears were hearing it. Like I was understanding that it wasn't matching up. So I had to go back to the drawing board. And that's when I started to tap into chord tones and pentatonics. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But the backing tracks give you the whole groove, timing, feel, and it just lets you go bananas on something and record it and listen back to it and see how well it worked. Save the stuff that you like, that you did well, repeat it. Stuff that didn't work so well, understand why it didn't work, and remove it from your repertoire and move on. But practice that as much as you can. I'm at the point now where I make my own backing tracks. I program my own drums on my MPC, and I'm using Scalar 3 just to fashion some really beautiful chord progressions, and I just go smooth right along. And it's fabulous time. I don't think I'll get bored of that, actually. That's one of my favorite things to do. Chord tones are important. Well, I just talked about that. When you reach a point when you're trying to improvise, or when I was trying to improvise, jam along with something, I know I'm in the right key and just some of those damn notes ain't working. Like, what am I going to do? So I decided, well, if I played less notes, then they won't get in the way. Pentatonic notes has 5 notes. I started with that. That worked a lot better because it removed clashing with those color tones outside of the scale. But the mother sauce, the best thing, and I'm kind of hyperfixated on them, are chord tones, right? First, third, and fifth of a scale, 3 notes. These are the money tones of a chord tone, right? These you don't get wrong. These always fit. They always work. And the more I practice these, the more I realize this is where the secret sauce is. Because if you know your modes and you know your chord tones, you can really get into the DNA of a song and do almost anything with it. When I was taking lessons at Guitar Center for about 6 months, my guitar teacher said, you can make a living off of chord tones. And I was thinking to myself, what is this guy talking about? He's just riffing. You don't know what he's talking about. You got to be a lick master or whatever. However, he was 100% right, because now I'm so keyed in on the chord tones, and I figure out, like, this is what they're using in jazz quite often, bumping those chord tones. But you have to be so, I want to say proficient, but you have to really have a really good understanding and a really good flow on, stringing them together. But it allows you optimum sound quality and clarity, right? So what are chord tones? Chord tones are the key notes in a scale that sound the best over chords. That's what I just outlined. Understanding chord tones help your playing sound more structured and intentional. 100%, right? Mastering chord tones is a game changer for creating great melodies and solos. That's correct. So whenever you hear, I'm going to just go off on a limb here. Whenever you hear a nice, really nice solo and you hear those 1, 2 notes, bum, 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 those are most likely chord tones, right? Because they're playing those notes that really resonate with the whole thing as best as possible, right? And whenever you hear like somebody going off on something and then they come back to that one note, they're probably coming back to the chord tones to make sure that they pack it in and punch it in as hardcore as possible. Chord tones, once you get the regular scales and modes comfortable, you don't have to know them 100%, but once you get them comfortable, where you know most of the notes and that sort of thing, start outlining those chord tones almost as soon as you're comfortable, because it really takes you to the next level. I listen to stuff now when I start noodling around, using too many notes sounds kind of nasty, not nasty, it just sounds like too much. It gets murky. And then I'll hear it while I'm playing, and then I'll pull back and I'll just slow down and put in the chord tones. Take my time, put a little space and time in between. And when I go back and listen to it, it makes me sound professional in a certain way compared to the busier full notes, right? I'm not professional, but it gives you that quality. What is it? It makes you sound more structured and intentional. That is so true. And you know what? It's actually easier. The less notes you play are easier. Secret. So that's kind of like my little take on it. Hopefully that helps some of you guys out there. Modes are a great way to add personality and emotion to your music. 100%. Practice regularly and focus on one mode at a time. Most importantly, experiment, explore, and have fun. Yeah, there's no point in just practicing if you don't experiment. Rinse and repeat is a phrase that I like to use a lot, because you just do something to the point where you're like, I got to change it. Then you just start experimenting. Do something different. Throw some chord tones. Throw into music. Here's one interesting thing I just came to my mind that I like doing. I don't do often enough, but I should. I'll go to Apple Music and I'll play the top 10 songs and I'll just play along with it. Not trying to figure it out note for note, but I just try to follow the chords. And after playing the scales for a long time, that's a lot easier than I thought it was. It only takes me like a minute to figure out the chord tones, not the chord tones, but the chord flow of it. Like I thought I'd struggle just trying to find the first note, but it's not that difficult at all once you practice. So who's going to practice consistently and who's going to have the discipline? That's what makes you a better person. You know, you want to get to a point where you feel guilty not practicing. And that's where I shine, is when I was so into practicing and doing things in different ways that when I didn't practice, I kind of felt like I was letting myself down. And practice was the highlight, not the actual playing. Hopefully you guys can get to that. But let me know what you guys do out there. What are some of the things that helped you early on in trying to understand all this? And mind you, I like covering all this because I'm not obsessed, but I love the quality of improvising and jamming. I think there's some essence in that free form, tapping into that creative process with a group of people or with yourself, and pushing the envelope on some stuff and being creative. That is a hugely satisfying thing for me. And that's why I kind of talked about all these scales and chord tones and the modes in that fashion, because that's what I like to do. So you can go and watch some of my other videos if you want to check out some of the stuff that I've done, but leave some comments down there. Let's talk about this in the comments. And don't forget to like this, number one, and subscribe, because I want to get to over 1,000 subscribers in 2025. Hopefully you guys can help me get there. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one. Peace.